Today I'm going to be looking at the power steering of my 1997 Toyota Camry. It has a leak and it's just progressively gotten worse. It was just a little bit at first and I could add some, but now I've added leak stop and I've added lots of fluid and it just flows right through. So I'm going to look and see if I can find where the leak is and then see if I can repair it. Here's my first clue. I'm looking under the car and I see a little bit of fluid on the ground. Now it looks a little bit like water because it's so clear, but if I feel it, it's got an oily consistency. So I'm pretty sure this is the power steering fluid. And if I look back up on the car, you can see there's some places where it's dripping down. So I'm going to look up in there and see what I can find. I think I'll take the tire off to make it easier to see up in there. So going up on the passenger side of the car underneath the front wheel well, I'm looking here at the CV boot, and then right above that is the power steering pump. And I can see by looking at the power steering pump that I've probably got a leak either in the hoses going to the pump or in the pump seals themselves. Behind the tire there's a splash guard that needs to come off. That will make it much easier to get to everything inside there. There are just two 10mm bolts holding that on. You can just pull it down. And now we can see the main pulley of the engine here, and then the power steering pump is right back behind that. Since I saw the power steering pump was leaking, I went down to the store and bought a new one. This is from AutoZone. It's $109 plus a $55 core charge, meaning that when I take back the old one I'll get $55 back. It's packed with oil. When you take it out, make sure you don't lose anything. There's a ring laying down there. I'm sure I need to put that in somewhere. But this is what the new pump looks like. I'll have to take the pulley off of the old pump and put it on right here. So I'll show you how to do that, and hook up the hoses here and here. And then I have attaching bolts that'll be going through these holes, imagine. So that's the new one, and I'll hold it up next to the old one just to make sure that they look the same. It's kind of hard to tell in the video, but this pump does match the old one. You can see there's the pulley, and there's the where the hose bolts onto the side. There's the little hole for the hose and the bolt. So this looks like the same one. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the old one. I'll need to get a catch pan under here because when I take the hoses off, the rest of the power steering fluid will just fall down. So the next thing I'll do is unbolt this hose. There's a bolt right there holding this hose on. I know it's all dirty, it's hard to tell what's what, but I'll take this bolt out and then this hose will drain the fluid into the catch pan. This bolt is also 12mm. Once the bolt is removed, then you can just pop the hose off of there, work it back and forth, and pull it out. And there goes the fluid down into the car, into the catch pan. I'm going to put a clean piece of paper towel into the hose hole so that dirt doesn't get in it while I'm removing the rest of the pump. So just put it right in here, and that will prevent any dirt getting into the hose, into the system. And I'll just poke it back up out of the way. I needed to break loose the hose connection, this other hose connection. I had already taken off this one, but this one has to come off also before you take it out of the bracket, or else you won't be able to hold it to undo it. So to get this one loose, I used a 15/16 wrench. I don't know what the metric equivalent is, but 15/16 works. And just disconnect the connector on top of this silver nut, there's an electrical sensor connector. Disconnect that, pull up the rubber boot and squeeze the tab and disconnect it. Just to give you an idea of the connector, this is the hose coming down here, and then this is like a ring that goes around the bolt that screws in. Let me just show you that bolt. It's this guy right here. This bolt screws all the way into the body of the power steering pump, and that ring on the end of the hose I was just showing you goes around, and the fluid flows into these holes here on this bolt. This is the connector, the electrical connector for the sensor right there, and it connects to this connector right here. Just put the wrench on there, and I pulled it really hard, and when it broke I skinned some knuckles, so you might want to be careful. But once it breaks loose, it's fairly easy. So you just turn it loose with your fingers. You might want to make sure that you have the drain pan underneath it again, just because there may be some fluid in this line as well. Take that off. Okay, and yeah, there's some fluid draining out. You can see that fluid coming down. So that line's loose. So to get the actual pump out now, we've got the hoses loose. There's a bolt on the top and on the bottom that have to come out. The last bolt that I had to get loose, and the very hardest, is up at it's at the top, and you get behind slightly behind and above the pulley with a 12mm wrench. I put the wrench on, and then I got a kind of a long bar and tapped the top of the wrench from up under the hood, and finally broke it loose. And once you break that loose, then the whole thing will swing and you can take the belt off. But now I'm going to take that bolt out, and then I think the whole thing will come off. Once the top pivot bolt is loose, you can swing the pump, and you can see it pushes up now, and you can take the belt off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and get the belt out of the way. Just pull the belt back over here out of the way. You don't need to take it all the way off because there's a belt over it on the main pulley. If the pulley doesn't want to come off without a fight, then you may have to use a wheel puller. That's what this gadget is here. You tighten this bolt, and it pushes against the center as the arms pull the wheel up. Okay, and the wheel just comes right off. Still got fluid in it, so be careful how you handle it. Now I've got to take this bracket off the front. These two bolts were loosened earlier to get it out. But this third bolt right here needs to be taken loose. So I believe it's a 14mm for that guy. And if it's difficult coming out, you can just put the wrench on there like that and just bang the wrench on the pavement, and that loosens it. It comes right out then. So what's important to remember is that this open hole of the bracket goes towards the top. So just remember that as you're taking it apart. Okay, so we have the removed power steering pump, and then we have the one that I just purchased a little while ago at AutoZone. They look very similar. I hope that they're identical. Yeah, these two holes look like they have the same size threads, and I keep that plug in. And then we have the other part where the hose is going to go on. Okay, an important thing to remember when we're putting this back together is that the long bolts that are going to go through the body need to be installed before the pulley is installed, because once the pulley is installed, right there, the bolts won't be able to come out or go in. So you want to install these long bolts through the body on the top and on the bottom, and then we can put the pulley on. Actually, we want to install the bracket before we do the pulley. So this bracket is fairly simple. It's got 3 holes that go to the power steering pump body. Then it's got this top open hole that'll go on the bolt that pivots, allows it to pivot, and then it has a welded on nut in the back. You can see this nut that's been welded on to screw the bolt into, that's going to tighten it on the slide. We'll just put it on with this, the shorter of the 3 bolts goes in here first, and the center bolt. Okay, before you get this tight, you can go ahead and put the longer bolts in there as well. And then go ahead and tighten this bolt all the way. Okay, once we've got this bolt tightened and these 2 installed, it's safe to put the pulley on. Now the pulley is not the same on both sides. It's got a shallow side here, and it's got a deep side here. The deep side goes towards the pump, so we're going to put the shallow side out, and then we're going to just line up the splines, and the pulley just falls right on there. Then we can put the nut on to hold the pulley that you removed earlier, and the threads on this new pump are a little bit boogered, so we'll have to just take our time and get it started right. What we'll do is we'll just very gingerly tighten it with a impact wrench. Okay, and impact wrench is really the easiest way to do this, because you don't have to hold the pulley with any clamps or anything while you're tightening it with a regular wrench. You can just do the impact thing and it'll get plenty tight. So the pulley's on there. Once you have the front bracket and the pulley on, then you can put the rear bracket on. This is the rear bracket, and the welded bolt should line up with this open hole here. So just here's the ends of your long bolts that you installed before the pulley. You just put the bracket over that, and then put the nuts on that you removed earlier. And you can go ahead and tighten this bracket down, because it'll be okay. It can install with these 2 brackets attached. So there we have the pump with the front and the back bracket on, and it's ready to install. To install it, I'll poke this open hole over the bolt. There's already a bolt in there. I'll poke that over the bolt, and then this part will go behind the slide bar, and I'll put this bolt into it through the slide bar, and then I'll just run this bolt all the way down. Before I tighten this one, I'll go ahead and tighten the belt and put this bolt in. Of course, I'll need to attach the hoses before I do any of that. So to install the new pump, we'll just we'll put this open hole, we'll put it towards the top there and catch that bolt. There's a captive bolt in there that you can't get out. It'll go onto that bolt, and then the bottom This part right here will go behind this slide, and then there'll be a bolt that goes through the slide and catches that. Once you've got this bolt started, then it'll stay. I'm going to go ahead and just loosely tighten this bolt with it all the way pushed in so that the belt will go back on more easily, and then I'll get the top bolt started. You can't really see it, it's all the way at the top there, and it catches the welded bolt on the back bracket that I showed you earlier. You can actually get a ratchet wrench in there. Okay, once you've got it roughly tightened in place, then it's time to put the hoses on. You want it pushed all the way towards the front of the car, all the way up this slide, so that you have the most room to get to the holes where the hoses are going to go. So we'll put the top hose on first. It's nearly impossible to get the camera up in there. On either side of this ring connector, there needs to be a copper washer. And I had 2 copper washers that came with the new pump, but the old one that I took off actually has the 2 washers connected to each other, and so I think I'm going to use that. Just slide them on like that, and they'll stay until we're ready to connect everything, or not. So we'll slide them on as we put the nut on the top and screw it into the body. But I'm going to put these copper washers on either side of the ring as I put the this bolt in to tighten the hose ring down that I showed you earlier. So once I get that tightened down, of course I'll have to hook up the electrical sensor right there. So here's the assembled end of the hose with that's the hose ring there, and you can see a metal that goes off behind that. There's the copper washers on either side with the connector between them, and then the silver part on the top is the nut that's going to tighten. These threads go down into the body. These threads go into the body of the pump. So let's go ahead and thread that in. There's the pump, and here's the top of the pump, and then there's the connector with the copper washers, and then the nut on top that's gonna screw down into the pump. So let's go ahead and get that started. Just be very careful getting that threaded properly. And of course you want to keep everything clean. Try not to knock any dirt down into anything. Here's what it looks like assembled. I've got the copper washers. It's not quite tight yet, so and we'll just tighten this with a 15/16 wrench, or the metric equivalent if you have it. Okay, once you have the top hose tightened down, then we can put on the bottom hose, which is just going to go right here. I went ahead and put the belt on it. It's not hard when you have it pushed all the way in on the adjustment bracket to just slide the belt on and just slip it on around there. So I went ahead and put that on so it'd be out of the way. Here is the bottom hose, and I had put a piece of paper towel in it to keep it from getting any dirt in it. So I'll just take that out now and just wipe off any dirt around there. There is a rubber washer already on here. You probably can't see it, but it's just around the little small part of this hose connection. So we'll place the hose over the hole where it goes. Just pop that right in there, and then there's a little bolt that's gonna go in the tab there next to the hose connection. You may have to twist the hose back and forth on the connection to get the bolt started. Okay, and there's the bolt that's holding the hose on. We just screw that down. It's a 12mm wrench. Okay, that's good and tight. So we've got all the hoses connected and we've got all the bolts installed, but we have not tightened it on the bracket. So the belt's installed, and we need to pull it down this slide and tighten it. First we'll loosen up this bolt a little bit. And then this pulls down. So to tighten this, I'm going to use this big breaker bar and just poke the handle up in there between the pulley and the transmission, I guess that is, behind it, and just pull on it. And I can see the mark from where the bolt was before, so I'm just going to tighten it to where it was before, and that should be tight enough. So I'll pull it down and just check the belt. That's pretty tight. And then just run this down. Well, that's unfortunate. Put your wrench on there first and then pry it down. That's a lesson I just learned. Alright, once we have that done, pull our pry bar out of there. And we need to tighten the bolt on the top of the power steering pump, which you can't really see, but you can get a socket on that too. And you remember that bolt has a welded nut on the back of the bracket. And that works. Using the open-end combo wrench, you can tighten the top bolt right down. So once everything's tightened up down below at the power steering pump, you can go ahead and add some fluid to the reservoir. The reservoir has marks on the side here for min and max. I don't know if you can see them, but on your car you'll be able to see it. There's min and max, so we're just going to pour some fluid in there until it comes up to that line. Okay, and when it's up to the line, then we can go ahead and crank the car and let it run through the system. So we'll put the lid back on here. And we'll also check for leaks. So when we crank the car, with the car cranked, fluid went back down, we need to fill it back up. Watch the fluid for a second, make sure it stays up. Looks like it's going to stay there now. And then we'll look under here, look underneath and check for leaks. Don't see anything dripping yet. So we'll call that good and put it all back together. Well, I was able to replace my power steering pump, and doesn't seem like I have any leaks. Seems like it's working fine, but I wouldn't recommend doing it. I think this is a good one to hire someone else to do if you can afford it. If you can't, I hope my video is helpful to you. Thanks for watching.